Hello, welcome back to Called to Homeschool with me, your host, Coach Meg Thomas, and I am your homeschool guide and guru, and I love talking all things homeschool. So let's dive in today. As many of you know, I have a spot now where you can ask in your questions and I answer them. So this comes from that today. This comes from Jenna from Utah. And if you have a question for me, make sure you just go to my Instagram bio or it is in my newsletter, a link for you to sign up for these. So this is such a fun question. And the podcast title is Living the Dream Travel Edition for Homeschool Families. And so I'm excited to dive into this today. And just some homeschool families love to travel and some don't. But if you do, then this one is definitely for you. So Jenna says, just a fun one, just a fun question. Tips from you and your husband on traveling, finding those hidden gems, navigating the situations with large families. For examples, activities for tiny to teens when tickets say age 8 and up. Or Uber for 7, please. Maybe how to find affordable plane tickets or other admission. Hotels or housing for large families. I was inspired by your podcast, Living My Dream. I am a newbie at traveling myself beyond road trips within an 8-hour radius of home. So flying with all the kids feels intimidating. Okay, so let's dive into this. I have a lot of thoughts with this that we're going to kind of dive into and kind of go over and then share a lot of tips with these things. So, with traveling, you obviously have to have funds to do so. And so, to me, that is in the very beginning of this. I mean, you got your mindset, like, I can totally figure this out. And even I was thinking about this with even inspire, like, having your kids have a desire to travel, to see new places. And so behind me, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a map behind me, and on the other wall is actually even a bigger map, that was I don't even think they make it from anymore, but it's IKEA, and it's really large, and it's been in our homeschool room for years. The kids love it. And then we even have a cork board with map, and everybody has their own colored pin, and when you go somewhere, you get your color pin in. Now, if most of the family goes there, it's just white. But if you go somewhere that only a few of you have gone to, you get your own colored pin. And then I have printed off canvas prints of some of our destinations. So it's really fun to get onto the board. One of my kids just got his very first pin. He went and did a humanitarian trip in Guatemala. So he was so excited to have his own pin because his stuff has always been with most of the family. And this one he went on by himself. So that's something that's really fun to inspire. I also love when we're doing history to really get a love for the people. And so when we've studied China before, right? And we actually end up getting into communism and some of those heavier topics, but we always start with legends and folklore and just the history and the beauty of the country. And so I really love to inspire my children to get a love for a people and a love for a country. And so I'm just really a lot of the times creating this desire to want to go see and meet and have all these amazing experiences. So that's part of it. And then, like, it does cost money. So with that, you need to be intentional with where you spend your money. And if you have like an unlimited budget, congratulations, I do not. So, but being very intentional with where you spend your money. And so this may looking at, what do I need to say no to so I have the funds to be able to travel? And so some of the things that we say no to in our family is, we don't do Christmas presents so that we can utilize that money for a trip. And we actually don't really do birthday presents either. And we'd rather put that towards trips. We live in a very modest home. And so we don't have a big giant mortgage that's weighing us down. And we're not really big on a bazillion extracurricular activities. We're pretty frugal with our groceries, right? Different things like that, so that we are very intentional with the money that we have of what we can do with it. So just kind of some ideas, some background ideas with that. So let's go into some of these questions. Um, so the first one I want to talk about finding maybe cheap plane tickets. So there are a bit different ways you can do this. If you have, like, if you're self-employed and you have a lot of expenses, I think a credit card that is towards the airline that's nearest to you is such a great one. So there is a Delta hub in Utah. So that would be a really good one. I think my friend does Southwest, a card with that, and utilizing miles with that. I looked into it and I just don't spend that much in my business to offset to like actually gain from that. And then my husband doesn't really care to do that with our personal finances. So I don't utilize that. But I know a lot of people do utilize a credit card and they can get a lot of miles that way in order for them to travel. It's just not the way we do it. I actually, sorry, I'm losing my spot. I utilize a Instagram and I'm actually on their email list. I paid to be a member for flights from home. So I know they are in Utah and their flights are from Salt Lake City, Utah, and they have some from Provo. And I know they have other places that they have created plans from like Vegas maybe and maybe Boise or something. I can't remember all the places, but I follow flights from home. I'm on their email list and like I had to pay for it. And they send me deals. So I just always have a little slush fund ready. So when a deal pops up that I can just grab it. So when my family went to Hawaii a couple years ago now, I found tickets for under $300 a piece. When like gone to Europe, I usually can find pretty inexpensive flights. So I do quite a bit. I even just got flights the other day to New York for 160 and they were direct flights. I didn't buy them, but like I'm just always seeing really cheap flights. So if there's an area now I want to go to, I'm kind of watching those areas. But I always kind of have a slush fund ready. And then you could also in Google Flights, you can put in an area you want to go to. So say you want to fly to England and you want to go to London. And so you can put in like watch for low flights there and you will get an email from Google of alerting you of a cheap flight from there and then having those funds ready. Now with that, you do need to be really flexible with the dates that you're going, which is awesome for being homeschooled because we have a lot of flexibility. So a lot of times I'm going um like I will find like a lull. September is usually a cheaper time to travel. Just finding those little lulls where prices will drop, right? So just kind of watching some of those things. Um, and then once we get there and traveling on a budget, we actually will stay in a really small room, and even in a smaller, what's it called, Airbnb. So the last time we went to Hawaii, like I said, was 2 years ago, and we had 9 of us. Now, mind you, my children are not small anymore. My husband and one, how many of my kids? Three of my kids are over 6 feet, plus my husband's over 6 feet. My daughter's 5'10". My son, he's way taller now, but back then I just had like two smaller kids, right? And then my other daughter's my same height, and I'm 5'6". So we had just a place with two beds and we just utilized all the spaces. And I had a couch bed, so some people on a couch bed, but three kids in one bed, my husband and I bed, people on the floor all over the place. We've just gotten really creative with that. We've stayed in a hotel room that was just two beds and just like shoved a bunch of people in one bed. The one time we went, it was Hawaii actually years ago before we had baby number 7. So we had three, like my husband and I and the youngest kid in one bed, three kids in one bed, and then two on the floor, right? So we have been totally willing to just shove into a small room because we don't spend a lot of time in our room. So that's not a place where we spend a lot of the money is our room. So that's one way to travel on a budget. Another thing is with food is to do it with a budget is really utilizing the grocery store. I think breakfast is the easiest one to just do at wherever you're staying. If you go to a hotel that has a free breakfast, my husband likes to find stuff like that. Or if we're in an Airbnb, we'll just go to the grocery store and buy really simple foods that we can just eat there. A lot of times we travel, we actually only eat 2 meals a day, which sounds kind of funny, but we've just made it work. So we eat a big breakfast and then usually like a late lunch, early dinner, and we'll just eat out that one time a day. And then we'll usually have snacks. So like Hawaii, to get fresh fruit off the side of the road, really yummy, right? If you're, my husband and I, we actually just went to Banff, excuse me, last month. And we would just even grab some snacks, like a bagel somewhere, right? And just eat it and have that hold you over until dinner time. So that is a way that we have saved money. And then you talked about like tickets saying 8 or up. We actually only, when we travel, we only do one excursion that costs money. And so even when my husband and I went, we actually only did we went to some hot pots that did cost, but other than that, we just did hiking. So my family is really outdoorsy, and so when we went to Kauai was our last time we went to Hawaii. We actually did no excursions. We just utilized the beach a lot. We found crazy hikes, really fun stuff like that, and so we were never paying for extra excursions. Um, and so, but you also ask, like, how do we find those? I have a Johnny that finds the best thing. So what he usually does is he'll Google stuff, right? But then he'll utilize social media and just ask friends and family and post and like, hey, we're going to this area. Where are the really fun places? And so even when we were just in Banff, he asked people that he knew were Canadian or from that area, and they're like, actually go to Canmore. That's a really charming area. And so we're like, oh wow, Canmore was awesome. And we did really like it. And they were like, oh, also, you got to try this out and do this thing, right? And so we're really utilizing some of that stuff. So you can look at people's Instagram, blogs. Actually, a lot of the stuff we found in Canada was also from blogs. So just being willing to do some research to look up some of the fun things, maybe off the beaten path. So that's kind of what we do as far as excursions. So you asked about travel. So like Uber for 7, if you go somewhere we have to rent a car, it is tricky because sometimes the cars are not big enough for our family. And so we will just shove in to something like that. We've only really Ubered one time and we had to get a really big vehicle for that. But if everybody's coming, we usually just have to rent a car and do our best to make sure as many people could fit as humanly possible. But it might be a little bit of a tight fit. Let's see. So that is something that we've been doing with my family is traveling is geez, like my Briggy who's 14, I think he was 2. So it's been 12 years that we started doing this and we quit doing Christmas presents and we would open up a destination instead. And it was just like one trip a year. And as my kids are getting older, I'm finding us doing like a kid, like an individual trip because it gets trickier to get everybody together when they're all adults. Not all, I mean the 5 adults, right? And so I've been utilizing just traveling with one kid or maybe just a couple kids, and that has been really fun as well. And obviously a lot less money. But when we utilize our homeschool to maybe study an area before we go there. So when we went to Hawaii, we actually got really fun books on Hawaiian legends. We would watch videos about the history of Hawaii, maybe even learn some words from the Hawaiian language, right? What food do they eat? Who were there before? Like, how did it become a state? Who found it and who found the people that were there, right? So just really learning the history of it. Later on, maybe was it now I'm trying to think when we went. My daughter and I went. Was it just a year ago? I can't remember. But we went to with my younger daughter. We actually got to go to Germany, and we had done a huge deep dive of World War II. And my brother was living in Berlin with his family, and he's retired, and so he was our own personal tour guide. Saved a ton of money because he drove us around everywhere and like he did such an amazing job. And so it just made the trip so amazing because we had read all these stories, we had researched these areas, so we knew about them when we got there. So that was really really fun. And then this earlier this year, my one daughter and I got to do a big European trip, and we did Austria, I have to think, Vienna and Prague. So Budapest, Vienna, and Prague. So we did those 3, and she was still serving a mission, so she couldn't be doing a lot of research. But I read so many fun books, and one of them I read that was Empress Sissy, and I actually had Ariane Cameron on before we went, and she was talking to me and told me about Empress Sissy. She's like, "Oh, you have to know about this," and it's so funny because I had never heard of it, but people over in Europe totally knew who she was, and so that was super great from her. And I read, there were 2 books about her, and it was so fun because when we went there, I knew so many fun facts. I'm like, oh, she went here, and we went to her museum. And when we were in Budapest, like this guy they have a statue of is her alleged lover, right? And so all of these fun things. And so it just made everything come alive. And so the same daughter, she is moving away to Nicaragua for 3 months at the end of August to go teach English. And so she and I were like, hey, we should maybe do one more trip. So she has her 21st birthday is coming up, and we found a really great deal to Paris. And from Salt Lake City, they have direct flights to Paris. And so we found it, we bought it, and we have been reading so many fun books to prepare for our trip. So part of our school, we not too long ago, I read a lot about the French Revolution. But then since I bought the tickets, I have been studying. I read a book about Louis the 14th, which was really fascinating and interesting. my other daughter who didn't go with us, she's read Les Mis, so I feel like, and I've seen Les Mis, so I feel like I got a lot of French culture with that stuff. But we're also headed over to London, and so I was reading all these really fun books. And I love historical fiction; it's my absolute favorite genre of book. And I found the author Sandra Bird, and she had these three books about Anne Boleyn. Trying to think the three. It was three of Henry VIII's wives, and it just kind of told the story and a lot of history in there. And then you're Googling like what was true, what was part of the story, right? So a lot of that. She also has a book series on Victorian ladies of like more common people. And so I'm planning on hurrying and reading through those as well. Then I've been reading some English classics of Tale of Two Cities, which is about Paris and London, and reading Sherlock Holmes. I know as far as in Europe, utilizing excursions that don't cost a lot is free tours, and you don't have to pay anything, but then you tip the person who gives you the tour at the end, and that is a really great way to go see some really fun stuff, and then just give a tip at the end instead of paying $20 or $30 per person to go do something. So that is a really fun and affordable way to do that too. So if this is something that like you're wanting to do with your homeschool and traveling, start small. Start with little road trips and start working and creating a dynamic to make travel fun for your family. Learn how to pack, right? As silly as that sounds, like it can be so stressful if you and your kids don't know how to pack well to go on a trip. So, utilizing and trying an overnighter somewhere of like, how do we pack and how do we do these types of things? I like to laugh that, like, I have a great talent of packing and getting my whole family packed quickly. And I would have everybody set up and we would pack all at the exact same time. And like, okay, 4 pairs of undies, go get that. And then I'd wait for every kid to go get it and every kid to come back. We'd pack it right then. All right, everybody, 4 t-shirts and go get it and then pack it. Right. And so, like, practicing some of those things so that if you do then want to try flying or if you want to do a really long road trip, that your kids already have some culture of what do we do when our family wants to travel? What does that look like? And then, like I'm saying, if you want to utilize your homeschool in it, it's so fun to read about the area before. And it can just be YouTube videos. My daughter that's going to Nicaragua, we watched a bunch of YouTube videos just to get excited for her to see all the things there, learning about the culture, the government, the history, everything that we could about the country, right? So, you're going somewhere in the States, so you want to go see Mount Rushmore. So, learn about the history of that. Watch National Treasure, the one where they go to South Dakota. And just really utilizing these fun things. And so that when you go to the area, it almost feels familiar and it feels fun. And it's totally okay to feel afraid and nervous to do these things and try them anyway. The first time I traveled as the adult without my husband and flew somewhere was actually with my oldest daughter when she was 12 to 13 years old. I can't remember how old she was. We went to Kauai, and I was so worried about being the one in charge of flying without my husband there to tell me what to do. And my first time ever renting a car and doing some of these things. And I plan on being afraid and doing it anyway. And the first time I went to Europe, my husband came with me, and I just always feel safe and fine when he's there. And then the next time I went, my brother was waiting for us there. So I felt a little bit better, like, okay, I have somebody here that knows what they're doing. But this last time I went, earlier in the year, it was just my daughter and me. And I had to get us through 3 different countries and I had to navigate all of these things. And I was scared. And I've decided that I want to do it anyway. And so, if you really want to create something like this, travel or doing something fun like this, plan on being afraid and pushing past that fear. And did you know that fear and excitement feel the exact same way in your body, right? Like sweaty palms, your heart's a little bit faster, the butterflies in your stomach. Fear and excitement feel the same way. And so when you can lean into, and I learned this from Mel Robbins, of just saying, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. And so, like, am I nervous for Paris? Not as much this time because I did it not too long ago with her in a big trip. And I was really nervous then. And like each time I go and I do one of these trips where I'm the adult and going to a new area, I get a little bit less nervous and a little bit less afraid. And I get more and more excited and more confident in my abilities to do this. So I hope this has been fun and helpful for everyone who is maybe thinking about traveling with your homeschool or creating something fun with that. And if that's not your dream, then you like leaning into what is your homeschool dream. What do you want that to look like? Maybe yours is you want to be a big homesteader and you want to have animals and you want to do a garden. Like, great. Start figuring out how, starting small, right? Just doing some chickens first, planting some fruit trees before you go and buy a whole 10, 20 acres and diving all the way in, right? So go and live your homeschool dream. I'd love to hear what your homeschool dream is. Send me a message on at Coach Meg Thomas in my DMs. If you have a question you'd like me to answer the podcast, please make sure to go over to Coach Meg Thomas on my Instagram, and in my bio, you can fill out that, or in my newsletter. Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next time.